right, everyone. This is Letter from a Manager, or How to Convince Me That Open Source Firmware is a Good Idea. And I'm Jeff McGehee, and I'm a manager. I'm by no means a perfect manager, but managing people is something that I've become very passionate about after years of technical execution. I've studied a lot about what it takes to be a good manager. I take my role very seriously. And of course, much of what I'm going to say here is going to be tinted by my perspective on management. It may not be universally applicable, but I think it's going to be applicable to any good manager that you might find yourself in contact with. So, engaging and changing a manager's mind is delicate, and it needs to be a strategic operation, and any good strategic operation starts with reconnaissance. So we're going to try to talk about who your manager is, what do they think they want, or what do they think about, sorry, and what do they want. So first, who is your manager? They're a person, first and foremost. And in order to even have a shot at changing their mind, you have to understand where they're coming from. Empathy is a huge part of any negotiation. Read any book about negotiation, and one of the biggest tactics is to first understand the viewpoint of your counterpart. Maybe it's not good to think of your manager as a counterpart, but when it comes to negotiation, anybody who you're trying to get to see your side of view, your point of view, could be considered a counterpart. And so your manager is busy. They might be prepping a conference talk late at night instead of going to sleep. It might be last minute. And so they're busy, or at least they feel busy. And really, since this is about understanding where your manager is coming from, all that really matters is how they feel. So, you know, whether all of these things are a good use of their time or not, whether they're actually busy, it doesn't matter, but they probably feel busy, and that's important to remember. And things that are going to be on their mind, these are probably in order of importance in general, but of course they're going to shift around depending on what's happening at the time. So in general, your manager is going to be thinking about a long-term vision for the team and what it looks like for them to achieve excellence in the domain that the manager is working. So where are we going? How do we get there? Those should always be questions that are on your manager's mind. And it's important that you understand that in order to you know, present valid arguments in that domain. And then they're going to be thinking about individual team members. They know that these team members are important to their success. And so they're going to be asking questions like, are these team members satisfied with their work? Which team members can continue to grow? Which team members need support? And there's many more questions, but in general, individuals who they know will be the key to their success will be on their mind. And immediate product deadlines will take center stage from time to time. Are you going to meet a release that you're supposed to meet, et cetera, et cetera. And then issue triage. So, you know, there are going to be personal and technology issues, both, that are going to fall on the manager. So, you know, somebody said something he shouldn't have, or the team accidentally shipped a major bug, or product owners are trying to really like rip a sprint around, for instance. These are things that a manager will often end up triaging and trying to get right. So these are things that you can expect your manager will be focusing on whenever you approach them, trying to have conversations. So what do they want in the end? And this will vary, but I think in general, most people want success in driving their vision forward. So management is a choice, and usually people make this choice because they want to push something forward that's bigger than themselves. They want respect. Everyone wants respect, and a manager, most of them anyway, are seeking respect from above, from their managers or from executives, and from their team. So both of these are important, and any respect that you can help them gain will give you a lot of leverage in that relationship. And speaking of relationships, they want meaningful relationships, people they can trust, people who see things the same way, and who also challenge viewpoints validly, and really push for the team to be the best. And these relationships over time will really have huge influences on what these managers do. So they're important. And then lastly, they need a break. They've got a lot going on. They need people who get it. Somebody who they can trust to, give a quick message, get a quick call, give the rundown of something that needs to happen, and then they can know that that person is going to make it happen. This can relieve so much stress on a manager to know that they have 1, 2, 3 people that they can just reach out to, and they know immediately they'll understand what's going on and they'll get to the bottom of things. So we know who your manager is, what's on their mind, and what they want. Now it's time to execute a plan. First, we're going to build a relationship. So we've gotten to know this person a little bit, and let's build a relationship with them. And then you're going to build your case. And this is the good stuff. This is the interesting stuff in this talk. The rest of what I'm going to say can be found in a lot of management and negotiation books, those types of things. It's pretty standard. But the interesting stuff here is the case that we're going to make. And then you have to strike strategically. So once you've built a case, you can't present it Friday afternoon when everyone's trying to leave. You can't present it in the midst of a general crisis at work. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't start making an argument for open source technology. So you need to do it strategically. Moving forward, let's talk about how we can build a relationship. So first, you need to care. You need to care about your work, and you need to care about the team. And next, you need to do good work. And both of these, you'll see that they're written the same here. You shouldn't really have to show this. A great manager should recognize that you care about your work and about your team, and should recognize that you do good work. And if you're in a position where you feel like you have to show them this, maybe they're not a great manager, or maybe these things aren't true. A great manager will understand, will be able to tell if these things aren't true or if they are. So make sure that you're genuine in your approach here. There's nothing worse than someone who says one thing and acts another way, who goes out of their way to show you one success when under the hood they're not really exercising the same level of integrity. So this is important. These actually need to be true if you want to have a good relationship with your manager. And then lastly here, spend time one-on-one. This is, again, something out of a lot of management books. Most managers will be doing this. Will have a one-on-one meeting with all of their employees. If this isn't something that your manager is providing, I would encourage you to ask for it. You deserve to get this time for them to hear you out on your things you're interested in, your future, your goals, the things that are blocking you right now, the things that you need to be successful. These are all things that that your manager should be providing for you. And through this one-on-one time, you'll build quite a strong relationship. So now let's talk about building your case. Here's a quote from Paul Graham in an essay called Beating the Averages. And it says, if you're running a big company and you do everything the way the average big company does it, you can expect to do as well as the average big company. The same thing will happen if you're running a startup, of course. If you do everything the way the average startup does it, you should expect average performance. So he's talking about performance, but what is this measure of performance in our domain? I think really the best measure of performance is speed of delivery. And whether or not your manager knows this, this is what's going to help them achieve their goals. And if they don't already know this, they will soon. We're not really talking about quick wins that get forced on teams a lot of times. Anyone can take shortcuts to move quickly for a little while. This is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, sustained, reliable, and fast releases on projects whose feature complexity continues to grow over time. As this product, as this code base continues to grow, we can still move fast. And this is what all of our software best practices really revolve around. Being able to continually move fast no matter how big the project gets. And this is the speed that I'm talking about here. So when it comes to speed, there's going to be, I think, 3 things that influence it the most: people, tooling, and process. And when you think about averages, when you think about the industry and what's going on, all of these things have a distribution. A distribution of capabilities and people, a distribution of capabilities and tooling, and a distribution of capabilities and process. And you aggregate these together, and the exact method doesn't matter, because the axiom still holds here that when you aggregate these together, you're going to get another distribution, and on the right side is going to be the winners, and on the left side is going to be the losers. So the people that move quickly will win, that can continue to move quickly over time. And so we want to make choices that put us there on the right side of the distribution. And it should be clear that operating within the establishment is a guarantee of mediocrity. If you pick tools, processes that everyone else is picking, and you're going to be picking all from the same people, so you can kind of remove that more or less. We'll talk about hiring another time maybe, but you're going to be guaranteeing mediocrity if you make the same decisions that everyone else makes. So looking a little closely at the focus of this conference, and something that we're passionate about at Very, is embedded technology. And in this domain, it's a pretty narrow distribution in terms of the technology available and the speed of delivery that these technologies enable. Some of these technologies are open source, and of those open source technologies, I believe that there are a few that are really pushing the boundaries, but the adoption is low, right? They're way out here on the boundary of the distribution, and they're not highly adopted. And this is probably why we're all here at this conference. But inevitably, there might be some open source technology in here, or even over here, or even way over here. So there's going to be some subset of the software that is actually going to speed us up. And so how do we pick that technology? How do we identify that technology? And there's Barney Rubble. He wonders the same thing. And I'll tell him, and I'll tell you, that we pick this technology by thinking deeply about what breeds speed. This is something that I think about a lot with my team. I run an engineering team at a consultancy, and this means that the reason we're hired is because we're fast. And if we're not fast, it's very costly to our team and to our customers. So, so I have to think deeply about what this means, and I have to be able to communicate this to my team. And this is something I've been working on for a while, called the concentric development loops. And I'll just get into it and tell you sort of my thoughts, what this means, and why it's important. So we'll start here with writing a line of code. And you'll notice that writing this line of code is within this innermost loop I'm calling the local development loop. And we should be executing this loop frequently, and it should be very fast to execute. And what we do here in this loop is we compile our code for running locally, and then we test our code, ideally in an automated sense. This should be fully automated, in my opinion. And then based on success or failure, we can write more code. And we can continue in this loop very quickly and very frequently. And so when you leave this loop and move to another loop, really what this means, what this model exhibits, is that as you jump out of this loop, you're essentially signaling that whatever you're trying to test, you don't have confidence in understanding if it works within the previous loop. So it goes without saying this should be intentional, but if you find yourself jumping across these loops unintentionally, then you should think hard about your processes that you're following. So moving to the next loop, this is the hardware in the loop. So now we're going to compile our code for deployment to the target hardware. We're going to send the code to the target hardware, and it's going to take a little bit of time to write this code, and then we're going to test its operation. And this might be automated. There also might be a few manual tests, or a lot of manual tests in this domain. And what this means is that this loop here is going to be slower, and we've introduced another variable here, the target hardware, and this variable could be causing failure as well as our software. And I'm sure you've been in this situation plenty of times before. Is the failure due to the hardware, or is it due to the software? Who knows? Well, we can point fingers both ways, or we can try to test here and prove that it's not the software. And so when we're thinking about technology, one of the things that we need to do is try to force our verification of our code to the innermost loop possible, because as the verification moves out, it becomes much more costly to have confidence that our code is successful. And if you catch a mistake in this outer loop that could have been caught in this inner loop, you've wasted time, a lot of time, especially if you move to the outermost loop, which is essentially a full deployment, the full system in the loop. So we may push the source to the cloud, compile the code in the cloud on some build server, distribute to the whole system over the air. Depending on your mechanism for this could be extremely costly if it goes over cellular networks and if you have enough devices. And then after some time, you'll receive some alerting, some monitoring, maybe some bug reports, and this is the feedback that you'll get in this domain. And as you can imagine, it would be extremely costly and then extreme embarrassment, really, if a failure cropped up here that could have been caught in this inner loop, or the most inner loop, the local development loop. So with all that in mind, we want to pick tools that sort of force our validation into this inner loop, or make it easy for us to validate within this inner loop. And so we're going to pick tools that, like I said, first enable these loops. So make sure that every step in the loop is possible in every loop. Certain tools and certain stacks it's not even possible to do some of those things. So So pick some tools that that make that easy, and then maximize time in the inner loop. Make sure that local testing is possible and that it offers high confidence. The more confidence you can have in the inner loop, the less you have to leave it. So adopt technology that allows you to stay in that inner loop. This is something that really Ruby on Rails, it's hard for me to say that they pioneered, but you know, they're one of the first big tech stacks that I've seen do this, and you know, it really changed the way that web development worked. They gave a workflow that gives you high confidence in the local development environment, and you saw that like half the internet for a while was built on Rails. So moving forward, you want to make that inner loop fast. So sure, you're in there, but let's make it faster as well. So local testing should be efficient and well understood. You should do things that that make it easy and fast to test locally. And then lastly, ensure the outer loop is actually a loop. This is a little bit redundant based on the first point, but that last loop, right, it may not be a loop if you can't actually ship over-the-air updates, if you don't have diagnostic telemetry, if you don't have any sort of error reporting services that might be done by customers. All of these things need to be present in order for there to actually be a loop there that you can, you know, take another iteration on. And if you don't have that loop, then the cost there becomes infinite, and it becomes hard to release software, which is another discussion, but it's something that's really critical to think about. So how do we strike strategically? First, we're going to continually focus on ways that you and your team can work faster, and bring up points from this talk to your manager in discussion. Your manager should undeniably believe that working faster is good for your team and your goals. And so that I believe that a lot of the arguments in this talk are interesting, maybe novel, and they'll help your manager to see things in this way, which ultimately can lead to better adoption of open source technology. Next, do the legwork. Validate the technology on your own. Your manager is not going to have time to formulate experiments. They're definitely not going to have time to carry out the experiments. And so these are things that you need to do if you want to change the direction of technology adoption for your team. Then you know you've got to put some work in, and this is true in any domain, and it's true here as well. So make sure that when it comes time to make a push for some open source technology, that you can explain why it's going to work, and you have reasonable data to back that up. And look for the most open opportunities. So there can be a lot of them, but in general, a few are: look for open source tooling that can be used to enhance your main stack. So you know, you may have a given RTOS that your whole team is invested in, that's been shipped and deployed in the field. It may be a big ask to swap that out, but perhaps there's tooling that can, you know, help your team move towards those the inner development loop that you could use to enhance your main stack. So that's one way to get open source technology into the team. And sort of once it gets its foot in the door, and it proves to be valuable, then you know the ask becomes less and less heavy over time to continue to leverage open source technology. New projects. This is a pretty easy one to reason about, but if your team has a totally greenfield project, it's more reasonable to select new technologies. So be on the lookout for those. And then another one is open source projects with high team competency alignment. So You know, if you have a team full of C developers, embedded C and Python or something like this, you may not want to try to push for a Rust solution. You know, maybe it would be reasonable if your whole team had taken some courses on Rust and they were all willing to dig in and try to make it work. But that's going to be a tough sell to the manager. And don't forget that your manager may have to sell this up the chain. So, you know, choosing technologies that your team already has some competency within are like is important, right? And so try to choose some technologies that have those traits. And then lastly, be patient. This takes a lot of time. You know, like I said, your manager may have to make a sell up the chain. Your manager may not agree every time with the assessments that you make. These opportunities here, they may not show up very often. There's a lot of reasons, but in general, you have to be patient. You have to stay the course. This is the open source adoption is the long game. We all know that. But if you stick to it, hopefully you'll be in a place where you'll be successful. So that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. And I'll swap over really quick to a reading list from a lot of content that's really inspired me, inspired this talk, and will continue to inspire me as I push forward on my path as a manager. Thank you very much.